Hello everyone, this is part 51 of What If Naruto Meets the Nine Tails Early, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. The day had come where Naruto and Jiraiya departed the coastal paradise. While Jiraiya would admit he's miss all those busty beach babes in itty-bitty bikinis, they had been in this location for just over 2 months now, and even Jiraiya was ready to move on to the next potential peeping paradise. Sadly for him, he'd have to wait some time as the two of them were set out into the wilderness, heading north to some place in the middle of nowhere where Naruto would be trained by Kurama in utilizing the full potential of the full QB mode. Jiraiya knew this was important, especially if he had any hopes of not being accidentally flattened by a wayward fox-tail that Naruto had no idea how to control. Besides, he was a happy author, a happy, pervy author now that his best volume of the Ica series was now in the hands of the publisher, and it would only take a few months before that book hit shelves. So where are we going? Asked Jiraiya to a red-eyed Naruto, or blonde Kurama, whichever way you want to look at it. Just be patient, Jiraiya. We'll be there the day after tomorrow, commented Kurama. Seeing as Kurama was the one who knew where they were going, Naruto had temporarily relinquished control to his furry tenant. There's a village about an hour away where we can stop for the night. After that, we'll be in the wild until the toads are ready for us. Jiraiya nodded, but for some reason he didn't feel comfortable about following the QB into the wilderness. A few hours passed and the duo out of trio reached what appeared to be more of an outpost than a village. Kitsugato. We're in the land of foxes, aren't we? Asked Jiraiya, giving Kurama a questioning glare. Despite the initial appearance of the village actually was rather large, being covered mainly by forests. However, the primary aspect to this village was an extravagant shrine situated at the middle of the village, leading up a large hill. One of the most noticeable features about said shrine was the fox statues and torii lining the pathway to the shrine. That's the temple of Inari, the ancient kami of these lands and its inhabitants, replied Kurama. So this is where we're staying? Asked Jiraiya. Not in this village or temple. As I said, our destination is over a day away, but this land is still wild. This is the last piece of civilization until we reach our destination, answered Kurama. So where exactly are we going? Asked Jiraiya. Home, was all Kurama said before giving control back to Naruto. You know, if I'm correct, there's a ramen stand in this village, exclaimed Naruto, completely off topic and retaking control of his body as he went for his ramen passport. There was in fact a ramen stand in his passport, in this book. Kitsugato was the home to the Inari ramen. This would make ramen number 28. He was getting closer. He had never expected to fill his book during this trip, but 24 different entries were more than he had hoped. Now Naruto was certain it wouldn't be too much longer before he and Iruka-sensei were enjoying the Ichiraku special. After racing their way through the wilderness, the pair of Konoha ninja now found themselves overlooking the destination, a large, beautiful forested valley surrounded by a total of 9 mountains. There was a large river flowing through the center of the valley with a waterfall pouring from the cliff they were standing on. The place was wild and pure. It hadn't been touched in. It's been over 100 years since I've set foot in this place, commented Kurama. So where exactly are we? Asked Jiraiya. My home, replied Kurama. This left Jiraiya speechless for a bit. Your home. Or at least it was my home until I decided to leave, replied Kurama. I lived here with my mate in this valley until she was taken from me. Afterwards, I found I couldn't stay here and so I decided to move on. So why come back now? Because, I just felt like coming back here. It just felt right. I figured it was time and this place has always been good to me. Besides, it'll give us some privacy while I train the kit to use my powers to their fullest, replied Kurama. Sadly, my actual home has sickbed to time, but seeing as we've got plenty of camping supplies sealed away, there shouldn't be any problems. Within a few hours, Naruto, Jiraiya, and Kurama had scouted out an ideal location to set up as camp near the river and set up the camp where they would be spending the next few weeks. As it grew dark, Naruto found himself up in a tall tree, gazing at the bright starry sky. Wow, it's actually quite nice here. The stars are brighter than any I've ever seen back home, commented Naruto. You actually called this place home. A long time ago, replied Kurama. The real reason I came here was because I felt like this was the best place to tell you. Tell me about what? You asked to know more about me. You were right back there. You're the first human I've met in centuries I can actually say I trust, and as such I feel you should know more about me, especially seeing as we're going to take our bond one step further while out here, answered Kurama. Now, just don't interrupt me until I'm done. Kurama's tale. Over 1,000 years ago, these very lands were cast into a bottomless pit of hatred and a never-ending war ensued. To those who wished for the wars to stop, hope seemed to fade with every passing moment as those who possessed divine and mystical powers used them to fan the flames of conflict. These warmongers were seen as tyrants and gods to the common folk. They kept mainly to themselves as they knew if the secrets behind their powers were divulged, then the grip on the world would slowly slip. They were successful in their endeavors to control the world through destruction and greed, threatening more war to those who opposed their will. However, there was one man who wished for the wars to stop. He realized that the powers that only these select few warlords possessed lay dormant within each and every being on this planet, and that if used correctly, those powers could be used to usher civilization into an era of peace. And so this man, a simple monk, set out to divulge and explain the secrets behind this mysterious power, which was later given the name chakra. Upon learning the secrets of chakra, this man set out on a journey to spread his wisdom to the four corners of the world with only one goal on his mind: peace. As he began to spread his knowledge and free the peoples from their oppression, a law was granted to him. You know him throughout your legends as the Rikudo Sennin. I am going to tell you that those aren't mere legends, they are truths. Throughout his life, the Rikudo Sennin divulged into the very secrets behind the forces that governed our universe, blessed with these powers himself. However, the warmongering fools who tried greedily to maintain the grasp to power were not happy with the sage's exploits. One by one, they tried to silence the sage, but it proved fruitless. Armed with the eyes of Kami, the Rinnegan, the sage wasn't going to let this world dissolve back into the endless wars that once spread like wildfire. In the end, the warlords found themselves with one last resort to end the sage's quest for peace. Their own powers, they called upon the very depths of the universe itself to summon forth a primordial Ani from the beginning of times to strike down the sage once and for all. This Ani was the greatest of all Biju and the very source that our life force originates from, the Jubi. This being possessed a chakra, both potent and overwhelming enough that the complete destruction of our world looked imminent. In all senses, the Jubi was effectively a god of ancient times. Many stood together to face this foe and preserve the peace they had worked so hard for and come to embrace, but all failed. All but one. When all hope seemed lost, the Rikudo Sennin himself stood up to the Jubi. Using its immense powers, the Jubi bombarded the sage with multiple cataclysmic attacks. However, in the end the sage remained standing and unwavering. The sage then unleashed his own powers onto the An and the battle between gods ensued. As their powers continued to clash, it became evident to the sage that there was only one way in which he would be able to defeat this An, and that was to seal it within himself, effectively making him the first Jinchuriki. The world had been saved and the sage was hailed as a god by the people of the land for saving them from the Jubi's wrath. However, his victory over the menace was only temporary. You see, even though he was hailed as a god, the sage was in fact still human, meaning that even his own life would come to an end. And when that day came, the Jubi would be released from the seal to wreak havoc upon the world once again. As such, the sage came up with a more permanent solution. Using his own powers, the sage divided up the Jubi's chakra into 9 separate Anis, creating the 9 Biju that are known throughout the world today. Yes, to me, the Rikudo Sennin was my father and he is the one person I respect above all others. I have already told you a bit about my brothers and sisters, the 8 other Biju. You know them as Shukaku, Matatabi, Isabu, Son Goku, Kokuo, Seiken, Chome, Gyuki, and then there is myself. To me, even though some of us don't necessarily see tail to tail, they are my brothers and sisters, derived from the same chakra and created by the same man. Before we were scattered around the world, our father left us with a few final words: follow a rightful path and search for what real strength is. For the first few centuries of my life, I wandered the world, trying to continue what my father had started, aiding the humans and trying to guide them down the proper path, thinking I was following what the old man had considered a rightful path. However, I was not my father and I was unable to get through to the people as he would. Slightly frustrated, I decided to venture to the land we are now, hoping to find some respite against my own kind. I had learned that this land was home to many wise kitsunes and perhaps I could find my own path from them. Still, it wasn't as easy as I had thought. Many of the kitsunes had the idea of keeping to themselves and letting the world play out for itself, despite many of them periodically leaving the land to interact with the humans. I wanted to follow in my father's footsteps, not sit around devising new ways to trick humans and contemplate various philosophical ideals. I wanted to follow in my father's footsteps and help guide this world into a prosperous era of peace. It was then that I decided to leave the land of the kitsunes to set out and travel the world again, but I wasn't going to be alone. It was then that I met her. She was a beautiful young vixen who had 5 tails and a sleek silver fur. She was also a rather spirited vixen, not being able to sit still in these lands anymore and a strong desire to explore the world had overtaken her. When I left, she decided to tag along. At first, I didn't think of it that much. The company was nice and all, but she was a little too energetic even for my likings. However, as we traveled, we began to open up a bit more to each other and our feelings towards each other began soar. During our first world trip together, we fell in love with each other as we searched for what our purpose in this world was together. Despite being rather rambunctious and lively, beneath the surface she truly was a caring fox. That is unless you pissed her off for whatever reason. We traveled for a few centuries before returning home to contemplate what we wished to do. We had learned about the current state of the world and that hatred and greed was beginning to find its way back into the heart of humans. We knew that something would have to be done if this world was going to be saved from slipping over the edge into darkness again, and so after spending some time back here, we prepared to set out once again to ensure that the sage's work didn't go to waste. That's when everything took a turn for the worse. By this time, some humans had looked to darker ways to greedily increase their own powers. They had realized that if they truly wanted to transcend their own race, they would have to find a way to gain the powers of us demons, whether they be kitsunes like myself or some other class of demons. You've already read about this in those Fuinjutsu theory scrolls of yours back in Azushiogakur. By the time we had returned to the land of foxes, my brother Son Goku, the Yonbi, had already been imprisoned inside a human vessel. Over the centuries, I was forced to listen to the stories of my brethren be sealed and imprisoned. But I thanked my luck that I had managed to remain unsealed. I was also forced to listen to stories of the attempted sealing of various other classes of demons into human vessels. It was then that I realized the only class of demons that could be sealed within humans was the Biju, the class of demons that I belonged to. The reason was chakra. We Biju were pure constructs of chakra, and if done right, our chakra could successfully meld with human chakra. Other demons, however, had other elements mixed into their chakra that prevented their sealing into humans, but not into other objects like shrines and talismans. By the time our second journey began, most of the demons left in this world had either been sealed, or they had moved on to a different dimension to escape the greed of humanity. Still, me and Hikare remained. We held our hope that there were still some humans that would listen to reasoning and that we could guide them away from the hatred that was slowly engulfing the world. For a while, we were successful, but then it happened. I still don't know how exactly, but somehow a shinobi clan had discovered that Hikare was in fact a demon and their leader was going to attempt to seal her powers within himself. By the time I had arrived to try and rescue her, it was too late. While the bee had failed to seal Hikare's powers within him, I could no longer sense her amongst this world. He actually came up to me and mentioned that I should be grateful to him for ridding a man of peace of a demon bee. It was then that I snapped. It was then that I had forsaken the old man's words and gave in to the hatred that was slowly claiming this world. In my anger, I mercilessly asked that entire damned clan for their atrocity. And from then on, I was on the run. Being a Biju, it was already known that I could in fact be sealed within a human vessel, and it seemed every greedy piece of filth on this planet wanted to get their hands on me. For nearly 200 years, I was able to evade capture, but throughout that time, my own hatred towards the human race grew. However, it was never quite enough to warrant me attacking anyone unless it was out of self-defense. And then, he came, Uchiha Madara. With those accursed eyes of his, I fell into his grasp, and the next thing I remembered was being freed from his control by Senju Hashirama. But still, even then I wasn't able to breathe the free air, as I was soon sealed into my first vessel, Uzumaki Mito. While I was sealed, it gave me plenty of time to reflect on just what had happened, and despite her own preaching of love and understanding, I only grew to hate more. Despite what I once believed, I could only loathe the very race that had taken everything away from me when I had simply tried to help them. After that, you already know what happened to me. End Kurama's tale. So what made you see different? I mean, when we first met, you really weren't hateful or anything. I mean, sure, you were kind of grouchy, but you really didn't seem bad, asked Naruto. At first, it was that contract. If it meant I'd be free of my prison in the end and eventually get my shot at the bee who screwed me over, then I figured I'd put up with it. But eventually, I decided to open up to you, replied Kurama. Regardless of everything you've been subjected to, you still push forward, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. You're different than most humans. You don't seek power for yourself, you look to protect. I know that you seek to end the hatred in this world. I know no matter what you've had to endure, no matter how hopeless the situation, you won't give up and you'll find a way. In a way, you're a lot like him. Hey, you've got that right. No matter what, I won't back down, especially if that means protecting my friends from danger, replied Naruto. After all, that's my ninja way. Besides, it's good to be back in action. It really did get boring just sitting there inside those seals. At least this way, I can have some form of interaction with the outside world, replied Kurama. Hey, speaking of which, how did you manage it all those years? How did you and Hikare manage to blend in where you traveled? I mean, you said you talked to people. Wouldn't a giant fox seemed kind of weird or something? Asked Naruto. Hee, you really think I survived all those years looking like I do now? Let me ask you this, why even as a mere academy student were you able to pull off an advanced transformation jutsu that's supposedly Jonin level? I'll admit you're not a complete failure, but even that's pushing it, replied Kurama. You know, I've never really thought about it. Until that show and tell day at the academy, I thought my transformation was normal and that I had been doing everything right. I really had no idea it was a Jonin level transformation, replied Naruto. The reason your transformation is so advanced is because of the influence of me. I may be a Biju, but I'm also a Kitsune. As such, I have some traits that are associated with Kitsunes. One such trait is the ability for me to take on a human form, replied Kurama. I also enjoy a good prank every now and then. But still, that's why we were able to travel amongst you humans for so long. Because we had taken on a human form. Really, you can transform into a human form. What do you look like? Asked Naruto. A blonde-haired, thick-headed, orange-wearing idiot, joked Kurama. Hey, objected Naruto, picking up on Kurama's playful insult. Anyways, I can't transform while I'm sealed inside of you, but if you've ever wondered why you can use a high-level transformation so easily, that's why. Over the years, shinobi have developed the transformation from a simple genjutsu, but it's still not quite as advanced as the ones kitsunes can do. Hey, speaking of kitsunes, I don't suppose there are any around here? Asked Naruto. I doubt it. Most of the peaceful demons left this world ages ago, with the more hostile ones being sealed away in some sort of talisman or shrine to prevent them from wreaking havoc on this world, replied Kurama. And then there were those sealed for no real reason. Don't worry. I know she's still out there somewhere. And I know I'll find her for you somehow, replied Naruto. After all, you've done more than just help me out of desperate situations. It's the least I can do to return the favor, and beside I can tell you really do love her. Are you really out there? For the first time in centuries, I can feel that perhaps you are not gone yet. If you're still out there somewhere, then I know this kid will be able to find you, thought Kurama to himself. Kurama, you there? Asked Naruto, not hearing anything from his demonic tenant for a few minutes. Yeah, perhaps you should go to sleep. You're in for a long few weeks of training with me. I'm going to make certain that you're worthy of being my vessel, replied Kurama. Naruto gulped a little at the impending Kyuubi's boot camp from hell. The next day began the Kyuubi's boot camp from hell, and to Naruto's surprise, it started off as a simple talk. Okay kid, Ever since that seal was released, you may have noticed something slightly different by the way you can access my power. In short, with the seal released you can access my full power and you can also control the amount of power you can access easier. Before the seal was released, the number of tails determined the amount of power you could access. It used to be that once you reached 4 tails, you entered the version 2 cloak. Now, that is not the case. You were able to use an 8-tailed version 1 cloak when you removed the seal for that boy. The case from now on is that your power is going to be influenced by what type of cloak you enter. You've got version 1, version 2, and then full biju mode. The version 1 allows you to use my own power to augment your own. You still have access to your own attacks, but you don't have the ability to access my abilities. Version 2 is where you set aside your own techniques but you begin to tap into mine. However, the version 2 cloak is still but a fraction of my own power. That is reserved for the full biju mode. Yeah, I've kind of noticed a difference in the way in which I access your powers. When I was helping Neji, I was surprised I was able to hold an 8-tailed cloak in the version 1. I get that one, although I'm still not quite that familiar with the version 2. I've used it a bit, but not too much. I did notice though that I couldn't use my own techniques, replied Naruto. And then full biju mode against Han was something completely different. The cloaks, both versions 1 and 2 are only a fraction of my power. We'll start with the version 1 cloak and go from there, instructed Kurama as Naruto took on the 8-tailed version 1 cloak. Good. Now try out a few of your own techniques. Nodding, Naruto went with one of his signature techniques, the Rasengan. Charging up the sphere, Naruto noticed that the sphere took on sort of a purplish tint to it. As the Rasengan entered a nearby rock, he was taken aback by the large crater it left in place of the rock and surrounding trees. Whoa, normally that would have just taken out the rock, but it was definitely more powerful than normal, commented Naruto. That's because that sphere was infused with some of my chakra. Jiraiya told you that your dad developed the jutsu after the tailed beast ball, so I believe what you have there is almost like a partial tailed beast ball. That sphere contained about 15 to 20% of my chakra, which is what served to boost its own power and give it that violet hue, explained Kurama. I'm sure you've also noticed that it increases your own speed and physical strength as well. For the remainder of the day, Kurama shifted focus from explanation to experience as he drilled how to make the full use of the version 1 cloak into Naruto's head. Naruto had noticed that all of his jutsu had gained an increase in their overall potency as was expected by both he and Kurama. Naruto also found a significant increase in his speed, agility, and even strength to some extent. Still, despite that, Kurama had proven to be a rather hard drill sergeant, instructing Naruto on how to best use the version 1 cloak's enhancements to better his own fighting style. Day 2 under Kurama's tutelage came along with training in the version 2 cloak. Now, the biggest advantage with the version 2 cloak is the unpredictability associated with it. Along with accessing more of my powers, you also gain the ability to extend the chakra outwards from you, giving you a sort of chakra arm. Until now, you've only accessed version 2 for the tailed beast ball, but there's much more you can do than just that, explained Kurama. Well, let's go ahead and enter the version 2 cloak. You've always done better by doing than me just standing here and explaining. Naruto took on the version 2 cloak as the dark red chakra completely overtook him and 9 tails appeared behind him. As Naruto progressed further into the version 2 cloak, a fox-like skeleton began to form around Naruto. Hey Kurama, what's up with these bones? I've never noticed them before, asked Naruto. It's because you've never used more than 4 tails of my power in the version 2 cloak. This is the full version 2. You can actually control whether or not they're there. They help a lot if you're fighting in close range, but they're kind of a hindrance if you're fighting from ranged. It's up to you if you want them or not, replied Kurama. Now, as I said, you can't use any of your techniques in this form, but you can access some of mine. You already know about the tailed beast ball. So let's try something different. Kurama gave Naruto a few instructions and the fox-formed Jinchuriki found that he could actually whip up a rather large twister by swiping with his claws. Unfortunately, said twister was aimed in the direction of a certain white-haired pervert who was observing the training. Hey, will you two watch where you're aiming? I thought you said I wouldn't have to worry about being hit while you were training. Called out Jiraiya after just barely dodging the twister. I said you wouldn't have to worry about being flattened by a tail. I never said anything about a twister, laughed Kurama, causing Jiraiya to sweat drop at the realization that he was likely now the Kyuubi's personal punching bag. Well, can you please aim it away? Asked Jiraiya. But that's no fun, pouted Kurama. Fine, seeing as what we're planning on doing next would actually KO you, haha. Handing control back to Naruto, Kurama began to explain the next ability Naruto had access to in the version 2 cloak. Fortunately for Jiraiya, this attack was aimed away and Kurama was right when he said that attack could KO as Naruto shot a highly concentrated beam of heated chakra out, carving through the rock faces of the surrounding cliffs and mountains like a hot knife through butter. Yikes, you weren't kidding that could KO, commented Naruto. Hee, what did you expect? I'm not the strongest of the Biju for nothing, bragged Kurama. You also have access to the Kitsune Tempest in this form, but you already know how to use it. Now, what I really want you to work on are those chakra arms, but for that we need a training partner. Jiraiya sighed as Kurama called over to him and indicated to him that Naruto needed a training partner to get a better hang on using the chakra arms. While Jiraiya wasn't about to submit himself to the torment of being Kurama's punching bag, he did agree to offer up a few shadow clones as AS. Over the next few days, Naruto began to get the hang of the chakra arms and the version 2 form thanks to the S of a few unfortunate shadow clones. After about a week there, Kurama decided that Naruto would most likely be able to catch on to the version 1 and 2 forms as he went, but it was really the full Kyuubi mode he wanted to work on, and with only a little more than 2 weeks before the Toads were ready for them and Naruto would complete the final phase of his training, he had to get Naruto's skills in utilizing the full Kyuubi mode to an acceptable level. Okay Kit, this is only the second time you've used my full form and as of now, you can still only hold it for no more than 10 minutes at a time. Which means that we're going to have to make the most of our time when you enter full Biju mode. That 10-minute limit will increase as your body adjusts more to the increased amount of my chakra in your system, explained Kurama. When you transform, the first thing we're going to do is get you in control of the new form. That means you won't accidentally flatten anyone with a wayward tail. Right, let's do it then, commented Naruto as he tapped into the full power of the Kyuubi no Kitsune and could only help as his own form took on the form of Kurama. It wasn't as painful as the first time, but the massive amount of demonic chakra in his system still felt kind of weird. As the transformation completed, Naruto had been completely replaced by Kurama's form as he now stood as a gigantic 9-tailed fox instead of an orange-clad, blonde-haired human. Immediately, the tails began flapping chaotically over the place, nearly hitting Jiraiya who had thought he was out of range of those tails. Now get them under control, ordered Kurama. How the hell do I do that? Responded Naruto. They are a part of you. You feel what they feel and they do what you tell them to do. Just focus on them and get them under your control, instructed Kurama. It's like walking. Once you learn to use them, it'll be like second nature to you. Taking Kurama's advice, Naruto focused solely on the tails and slowly but surely, they went from wild and frantic to a more controlled and flowing. Jiraiya let out a big sigh of relief as he no longer had to play, dodge the giant tail that's trying to crush me. Looking up, he still saw the tails flowing behind Naruto out off Kyuubi, but they were no longer out of control and it looked as if they were now under his control. Good. You just need to control them enough to keep out of the way. So long as they're not interfering with you or anyone else, you can let them do what they want right now. For the most part, just guide them and when you need them, take full control over them. Now do that and them as a sort of shield. Right. Naruto took full control of the tails and arched them over himself as if he were using them to block a massive projectile attack. Not too bad, now try using them as additional limbs. Lay few trees out of the ground and use them as projectiles. It'll help with your dexterity using them. As instructed, Naruto found that it wasn't too hard to get the tails under control once he first realized how to move them and he wrapped one of the tails around a nearby tree, it from the earth and chucking over him, sending it flying to the far end of the valley. Well that was kind of weak, commented Kurama. What do ya mean? Did you see the distance I got on that? Argued Naruto. Here, let me have control for a moment. Giving in, Kurama took control of his true physical form for the first time in a century. Oh yeah, it sure feels good being able to stretch my tails for the first time in years. Making controlling his own body look easy, Kurama grabbed his own tree and flung it at the nearby cliff, embedding the large tree in the cliff. Whoa. Please, that's nothing. Again, I'm not the strongest in terms of brute strength. You should see Sun do this. The tree would be buried up to the roots, assuming it hadn't shattered. So what are you two up to? Asked Jiraiya, curious as to why Kurama had taken control. Just helping the kit out with a little target practice, explained Kurama as he used the chakra beam to carve a target in the side of a nearby cliff. Just as Kurama transferred control back over to Naruto, the Kyuubi form receded back into Naruto. Looks like 11 minutes right now is my limit. Just take some time to rest, perhaps work on something else. Once you're good to go again, start chucking trees at the target but don't use too many. I don't mind you clearing out this old clearing here, but the parts that actually used to be forests I kind of liked. Right, you know, if you want to get out every now and then, I don't really mind if we're someplace that won't freak everyone out. Just don't do anything crazy, commented Naruto. So in other words, don't do anything you do, joked Kurama, causing Naruto to sweat drop. Anyways, I'd like that. Perhaps once we can hold this form for longer. And don't worry, I won't do anything stupid. You're sure about this, Jiraiya? Trust me on this, Bunter. I've had my doubts, but even I'm beginning to truly believe the Kyuubi's on our side. That seal's been removed for a few months now and he hasn't tried to break free or purposefully kill me yet, replied Jiraiya, who was situated up top the Toad boss's head. That still doesn't mean I feel comfortable about sparring the Kyuubi itself, commented Gamabunter. For nearly the past 2 weeks, Kurama and Naruto had been working hard to bring Naruto up to a point that was acceptable to his standards, and now the giant fox thought that Naruto would benefit more from actual battle experience. Oh, lighten up, Bunter-chan, commented Fukasaku, who had been summoned to help give Jiraiya a boost. Even I'm interested to see where Naruto-chan and the Kyuubi have gotten. Fine, but you're buying the sake for a long time after this, replied Bunter. In full Kyuubi mode, Naruto eyed Jiraiya atop the giant toad. Remembering his little initiation, this was going to be a good opportunity for some payback. Dashing off, Naruto made the first move as he closed the gap between him and the giant toad with ease, and Gamabunter just barely had time to jump and avoid the claw swipe. With a quick pivoting motion, Naruto whipped the tails around, intending to smack Gamabunter. By the time Naruto's tails came around, Bunter had just regained his footing, allowing him to catch the tails. However, the power behind the tails was too much for Bunter to fully dampen, and the Toad boss was sent flying backwards. Oi! Watch those tails, you brat! Shouted Bunter. Suten, gunshot. Bunter unleashed a number of water spheres at the Kyuubi-formed Naruto, causing his foxy opponent to either dodge or use a few low-powered tailed beast balls to intercept them. Growling, Bunter drew his Tanto and lunged at Naruto. Gracefully, Naruto sidestepped the lunge, and before Bunter could follow up on his attack, Naruto had used one of his 9 tails to wrap around Bunter's hands and disarm him of his weapon. Bunter was forced to jump back to avoid the other 8 that were now attempting to wrap him up. Ya know, this was a lot easier with Minato, commented Gamabunter. And if I remember, the last time all you had to do was drop down on top of the giant furball and hold him, commented Jiraiya. Well, shall we? Kaiten, Toad Oil Flame Bullet, shouted Jiraiya as he and Bunter unleashed the collaborative oil and flame attack upon Naruto. Countering, Naruto unleashed his own fire attack, Fox Fire, and the 2 fires collided in the middle, contributing to the massive inferno that lit up the ground between them. Well, it's a good thing the kid cleared that area out with target practice, thought Kurama, thankful that those attacks hadn't completely destroyed his old home. Senpo, Ultra Big Ball Rasengan, shouted Jiraiya as he was coming down on Naruto with a giant Rasengan in hand. The foxy Jinchuriki moved a few tails in the way to block Jiraiya's supercharged Rasengan. Much to Jiraiya's surprise, the tails proved to be more resilient than he had initially thought, as they successfully blocked his most powerful Sage Mode attack. As Naruto was distracted with Jiraiya, this gave Bunter a chance to build up for a more powerful water attack. Suten, Rampaging Torrent. Bunter unleashed a massive stream of powerful water upon. It was too wide of an attack for Naruto to dodge, and he was left with having to use one of his own attacks to defend with. Unleashing the Kitsune Tempest, the wind and water attacks collided, and by the time the powerful water attack reached Naruto, it had been dissipated into nothing more than a misty spray. Damn. That was my most powerful water attack and he just blew it away like nothing. This guy's certainly more powerful than the Shukaku, that's for sure, thought Bunter. Well, I think that's going to be it for now, commented Fukasaku. The Kyuubi certainly is powerful. Using his power, Naruto-chan was able to repel Bunter's and Jiraya's most powerful attacks. As Fukasaku called the Sparta an end, the Kyuubi form retreated until just Naruto was left there. So do you think he's ready? Jiraiya asked Kurama. I'll admit he's come a long way since we started. Had he have been fighting offensively instead of just defensively there, you three wouldn't have stood a chance, responded Kurama. Of course, he's still not as good as I am, but he's a lot better than he used to be and I no longer have to yell at him with what he's got to do. For now, I'll say I'm done with him. Good. His control over your power's going to come in handy once Akatsuki starts to move again, said Jiraiya. Well Pa, are you ready for us? Yes, if you three are finished here, then I can summon you both to mount. Myoboku, responded Fukasaku. While we're there, I'll train Naruto in the first phases of Sage training. Perhaps you could learn to enter Sage mode on yourself. It'll stop Ma's constant bickering whenever you summon us while she's preparing dinner. Hee, I'll think about it, replied Jiraiya. And we're ready to go. So how exactly are we going to get there? Asked Naruto. Well, Mount Myoboku is over a month away by foot, said Fukasaku. What? A month? Complained Naruto, getting a laugh out of the two sages. Don't worry. Since you've already signed the Toad contract, we'll just be reverse summoned there. It will only take a few seconds, not a month, reassured Jiraiya. Well, let's get going before he starts shooting his mouth off. Nodding, Fukasaku nodded, making a hand seal, and Naruto, Jiraiya, Bunter, and Fukasaku all disappeared in a puff of smoke. Awagakur. Onoki had just received the reports from the scouting team he had sent off to investigate the sudden halt to communications from the Namikaze hunting team. To say they weren't what he had hoped for would be an understatement. From the nature of the reports, all members of the hunting squad had been eliminated and all the elder Tsuchikage had from them was Han's shattered helm. Upon receiving news of the fate of the hunting team, the Awagakur Council was already on the edge. While they hated and feared Han, they respected his power as one of Iwa's most powerful shinobi, and if the supposed Namikaze had defeated not only Han, but three of their more prominent shinobi, then he was already a much greater threat than they had originally believed. But how could he beat Han? He was one of the few true Jinchuriki and there's no way he could have beaten the power of a Biju. Stated one of the council members. If that's the case, then the Namikaze is already a much larger threat than we originally believed. But to beat a Jinchuriki, for someone no older than 15. I can't imagine how he could manage to pull something like that off, said another council member before he was interrupted. Unless of course he was also a Jinchuriki, spoke a bearded, red-haired man with an odd-shaped hat. The entire council froze in horror at the possibility offered by Iwa's second Jinchuriki, Roshi of the Lava Release. But Konoha doesn't have a Jinchuriki, stated one of the council members. No Kitsuki, that doesn't appear to be the case, replied Onoki. How old is the Namikaze brat? Initial reports estimate him to be between 15 and 16 years of age, commented one of the Anbu present at the meeting. And we all know that just over 15 years ago, Konoha was attacked by the Kyuubi no Kitsune, explained Onoki. But the Yondaime Hokage K the beast by dragging it to the grave with him, argued one of the council members. You can't K a Biju, stated Roshi. If he had K the Kyuubi, it would have reformed by now. But it hasn't, which means T then H he's the JJ Jinchuriki of T of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, said Roshi. If our knowledge of Kumo's Kinkaku and Ginkaku is correct, then those whisker marks on his face indicate that he's been exposed to the Kyuubi's chakra. The entire council chamber paled at this revelation. If the Namikaze brat really was a Jinchuriki, then the threat of him had just increased immensely. I also believe that if he was able to defeat Han and our agents, then that suggests he does have a high degree of control over the Kyuubi's power, said Roshi. Onoki s his fists into the table, standing up out of frustration. Bad decision. Crack. Gah. My back, cried Onoki. Father, said Kitsuki, coming to his elderly father's aid. I'm fine, ouch, shouted Onoki as Kitsuki snapped his dad's back into place. Hogutsu, is there anything else in your report on the brat I should know? The Anbu who had been assigned to gathering intel on Namikaze Naruto stood up. Just one, sir. His family name does not seem to be Namikaze. It appears as if he was given another name. Well, if he's not a Namikaze, then what is he? Asked Onoki. His name is Uzumaki Naruto, said Hogotsu as a silence crept over the room. No, it can't be, he's a Namikaze, he can't be an Uzumaki. That accursed clan is supposed to be shouted one of the council members. Please, Tsuchikage-sama, please tell me that's not true. I'm sorry Tachi-san, but our reports from the Chunin exams hosted in Kumogakure 2 years ago show him using Uzumaki-style fuinjutsu. By this time, Onoki had clutched his hand to the point where his own nails were drawing B as he stared at the picture of one Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto in front of him. No, he's definitely a Namikaze. He has the same hair and those same cold eyes. Those same soulless eyes that ruthlessly over half our army in the last war. I'm certain he's a Namikaze, but, no, it can't be, Tsuchikage-sama, asked one concerned council members. He's not an Uzumaki, he's not a Namikaze, he's both. If one had walked into that room at that moment, they would have no problem feeling the cold, icy grip of the Shinigami's life-taking grasp. Jutsu. Kyubi mode jutsu accessible in version 2. Kyubi Twister, a move that Naruto is able to access in the version 2 and full Kyubi mode. With a single swipe of his claw or tail, Naruto is able to whip up a powerful and destructive twister. Chakra Beam, a powerful ability that Naruto can access in version 2 and full Kyubi mode. This is a fire-based attack where Naruto shoots out a highly concentrated beam of superheated chakra. This beam has enough power to carve through solid rock with ease. Chakra Arms, a version 2 only ability where Naruto can actually extend arms of chakra from any part of his body to attack, defend, and retaliate against an opponent's attack. Kitsune Tempest, a mighty roar that unleashes an extremely strong shearing gale of wind at the opponent or area in front of Naruto out of Kurama. While its power is restricted in version 2, in full Kyubi mode, this attack can easily multiple buildings from their foundations. Version 2 Tailed Beast Ball. In version 2, the TBB is also lower in power than a full Kyubi mode TBB. Once the chakra is gathered, it is ingested, causing the version 2 Naruto to blow up and expel the chakra ball at his opponents. Despite being lower in power, this attack still has the capability to easily blow through a triple Rashomon. Kyubi mode jutsu accessible in full Kyubi mode. All jutsus accessible in version 2 are accessible in full Kyubi mode except for the chakra arms. However, those are replaced by improved control of the tails. Tailed Beast Ball, a Biju's most powerful attack where they gather chakra in the form of a ball with a 8:2 ratio of black and white chakra. Once the ball is formed, 3 things can happen: a. The ball is fired as is, b. The ball isn't compressed and is expelled as a giant shockwave out of beam, or c. The ball is compressed and fired. Option C is usually the most powerful of these options as the compression adds an extra element of power to the attack. Foxfire, an extremely powerful golden white flame that Naruto out of Kurama breathes outward. Other Kyubi mode jutsus may appear later on as I think of them, but this will be it to start it off for now. Suten, Rampaging Torrent, a wide, powerful water-style attack. This attack unleashes a wave of powerful, pressurized water upon its target. With the size of the attack, this jutsu is hard to evade. Uses, Gamabunter, rank, A. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.